you there? A little bit early, maybe she's paying it. There's lots of you here, waving, saying hi.
Hello.
Hi. How you doing?
Hi. Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, all right. Nice to see you. It's really fun speaking to everyone and then seeing them a day later. I'm always like, hi, person. It's nice. How have you been doing? How's your day been going?
Good. I couldn't sleep. So, I woke up at like 5, which was just annoying. And then I couldn't get back to sleep. But then I just started my day a little bit earlier. So,
Bought some extra time.
yeah,
Great.
which is kind of good, actually. How are you?
Tell us who you are and what you do, just so everybody knows a little bit.
Yes, I am Temi. Temi Wilkey. I'm an actor and a playwright and a screenwriter, I suppose. Yeah, and those things. Not necessarily always in that order.
And recently you were just saying that you previously, sort of the last couple of months, you haven't felt that you would confidently go writer, but now you feel like you can.
Yeah. I think like in the last year, I've felt more like a writer, I suppose.
How does that feel different to being an actor?
Just like having loads of agency and also like always being able to work. Like that's, I think, the thing that I struggled most with, I'm sure most actors do, is like, unless somebody gives you an audience or gives you a part, you can't really act. You can like in your bedroom, but it's just absolutely not the same.
Do you feel like it's a bit similar with commissioned or not commissioned, or are you just happy to write even though, like, is writing not for commission as thrilling as writing for commission? Or
yeah, the what I'm working on today is not for commission, even though I definitely should be working on things that people are paying me to do. But I think, yeah, sometimes it's even more thrilling to work on something that no one's asked you to do, that you're just squirreling away with because you want to.
That's what I was saying yesterday. I think that's probably going to be the really good one. It's always the way. It's like The Mistress. It's like you've always like, when being like, you shouldn't, and you're like, but maybe I should.
Yeah.
For some reason, it's what I want. It's like creeps up on you. And you've got projects on at the moment. So the things we were going to talk to you about, because you had a show on just as COVID struck. You've kind of gone through a strange thing of having a process. The show opened, right?
Yes.
And played for.
Oh, how long did it play for? I think it was meant to be 9 weeks, but I think it ended up being 6.
At a bookshop near you.
But
it ended up playing for 6.
Yes, and it had another like 3 or so to go.
Okay, and then it had to stop, and it will potentially reappear again at Birmingham.
I hope so.
And how does that feel that it's had a pause?
It wasn't that difficult at the time, because I think obviously just before the theatres closed, I was feeling a slight like, oh, should they be open? Oh God, people are saying that they're going. I feel very mixed feelings about that. And so it was a bit of a relief when they cancelled it, even though I was deeply sad. But then I think maybe like a month later, I felt the kind of like feeling of like, oh God, I never got to say goodbye. And it was a sort of strange emotional like loss. And I think also because it's the only play that I've written, and like obviously my first play that was ever staged. So just the feeling of that being cut short is just quite really tricky. Hard. I don't think I've quite even figured out in my own head how difficult that was, it's just like, oh, just got to carry on. But
it sounds like you really have. It sounds like it stopped. You went into lockdown and you have just been like going mad with the writing, like really doing as much every day. Is that thrilling?
I think so. I think I've got deep psychological problems where I'm not very good at stopping or resting or things like that. And like my really close friend is always like, you should take a break. How about you take a break?
That sounds terrifying.
Yeah. But I think it has been good for me, because without a proper social life, like I've sort of been like, well, I might as well just do lots of work. And it has been nice to have something to focus on, really.
And have you found the work has a particular kind of tone to it, or are you digging into particular things? Like, were they things that you were interested in anyway pre-COVID, or was it kind of has stuff come up now? And also your first play changes your whole world in terms of when you sit down to write the next play. I don't know if that's the same, but I remember having the end of my first play and then sitting down to write the next one and being like, oh, this feels like a completely different beast now.
I think I sort of realised, I don't know whether it was mainly lockdown and feeling like I needed to laugh, And also when the play was staged, I was like, oh, people are laughing, I suppose this is funny. I think I sort of felt like I was leaning more into comedy and feeling like that, realizing how important that was to me and how important it is to me to make people laugh and make people feel good about the horrible world that we live in. So I think I lent into a more comic angle of what I was doing. But then
does that play out in your process, the funnies? Do you sort of try and make yourself laugh, or do you read it back? Do you have other people read it? Like, I just had a reading this morning, which I haven't had for ages, and it was really, the laughing, I forgot how awful it is when you've written something that you're like, that is so funny. And you're like, and nobody is laughing.
Oh, another one. I don't know. I think often there are times when I've written something and I don't know that it's funny until you put it in a room and people like laugh and you're like, oh, that feels nice. I hadn't intended that. But then sometimes I'm like, no, I think this is hilarious. And like, I think it's almost like when you're trying to make it funny, that's when it really isn't. Yeah, but there's something that I've written. I'm writing an episode for something, and there's a line that I always come to that always surprises me and that I don't even believe that I've written, that always makes me laugh. So I really hope that people find that funny, because I'll be gutted if they don't.
And do you think that's a skill you can school yourself in?
I think it probably is. I was really interested in doing, the Monobox was doing a workshop with, I've forgotten her last name, Rebecca Humphreys, was doing a workshop on comedy, and I think people could actually probably still sign up for like single sessions, and I was really considering doing that, but I've been spending so much time on Zoom over the last few months. I was like, actually I can't do anymore. But I was really, really up for learning it. I think it's called The Rules of Comedy, and I was like really interested in kind of like delving into that, because I do think it's a skill and something you need to practice.
And what have you got going ahead now? So it's mostly on the writing. Acting is not going to come back around for a little while, we guess.
Yeah, we think. Yeah.
Wait for the show to potentially reopen up in Birmingham. Do you have any dates for that? Do you know when that might happen?
No, not at all. We'll just see.
Because there's a very petty argument going on in our comments. I don't know. Between two people, it's kind of wild. They're just taking weird pop shots at each other. So you guys just enjoy yourself down there, and we'll carry on. So you're mostly writing now. There's not the acting gigs and the show going back on is going to be a bit delayed. So do you just writing your own stuff? Is it for commission? You were talking about TV. Like, what's your journey been from being an actor to somebody that wrote their first play, and now what does the future look like?
So I wrote the first play, and then it got programmed, and I think in the same week as it getting programmed, I got a bursary to write my first pilot. I need to remember what week that was, because that was such a good week in my life. And so I was working on my pilot, but then just before I think just as I was finishing my pilot, I got into the sex education room. So I was in a writer's room with sex ed in September. Yeah, and it was so the best.
How is writers rooming?
So good. I think I don't know whether I just got really lucky, because everyone in the room said like, oh, this is the best room we've ever been in. Like it was just such a great dynamic. I think it was like the chemistry of the people was just the best. And I mean, obviously I just love the show so much, so it was just like the dream. Just such a laugh. And so those things have been keeping me busy on the TV side. And then I've got like one like proper theatre commission, and then like sort of like a sort of commission to write a treatment with another production company. So those bits are like
things on the boil.
Yeah.
Going from being in a writer's room on a show that already exists to go back into your sort of bedroom and facing your computer every day and sort of the playwright life, like how's that two-step?
It's weird because when you're doing a writer's room, you're like, oh, this is great. Like, I don't have any responsibility. Like, obviously I do, because I'm trying to shape things and contribute. But like, it is quite nice not to have like sort of full creative responsibility. But then also when you're then in your room working on your own thing, you're like, God, I missed this. I missed like having like a real control or real say over what's happening. And you do definitely have real control and real say in a writer's room. But I think that part of the reason why I started writing was because I love collaboration, but I really needed to feel like I was having my own authorial voice. So yeah.
Does the pilot feel like a happy match of those two things?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, but like I think with the pilot, especially because I wrote the first draft before I'd been in the writers' room, I didn't know what I was doing, so it was just kind of like, this is fun because I have no idea what whether this works or not. And so I think I almost enjoyed doing the second draft more because I had more of a sense of what worked, what might work.
That was interesting. What did you feel? What had you learned from the writers' room that you then took back to the draft?
I think it was just like, I almost don't know what I could say it was, like cerebrally. It felt more instinctive. It felt a bit more like, oh, that the end of that scene doesn't feel like it's quite working, or the rhythm of this doesn't feel right, or it might have just been notes that I got that, yeah, I think some things, sometimes you like really know, oh, I know how this works now. I after doing this process, I really have a sense of this. Whereas I think after the writers' room, I just felt like I understood, like in an instinctive way, felt like I understood TV writing better.
And where's your instinct firing now? So if you've got this free time ahead of you, is it towards the theatre, or is it towards the pilot, or is it do they feel sort of like muscularly different? Are they different parts of your body and mind, or are they like, if you have an idea and it comes out in either of those forms, what's the nature or the temperature of the idea? Does it alter?
I think they do feel like the same parts of my brain, but they inform each other really well. Like I think when I write theatre, I don't write visually at all. I'm just like, yeah, they say this. Whereas with TV, it feels so visual. And so it's quite nice to have that part of your brain just like firing a bit when you come to write a play. And I like right now I'm working on a play, but then next week I'll probably be working on lots of like TV filmy things, and the week after that I'll probably come back to this play or work on another play. So they feel like they're always
interesting. Talk to us about that. So you don't feel you have to be on one thing from the start until it's finished. You feel like you can jump a little bit between things.
Yeah, because I think I was saying to you yesterday, I'm doing this sort of desperately rough first draft this week. It feels like a 0.5 draft, and I think it will be nice, especially because the things that I need to do on the TV stuff, I think will only be a sort of day at a time. Like, oh, I need to write this series outline, and I need to rethink about this outline. So they feel like yummy bitty things, and then I can have another week, the week after, properly focusing on the play, or maybe the different play, depending.
That's also interesting to me. Series outline one day.
Yeah, bit risky.
That's amazing.
I don't know, but I mean, I have never really written one, so I'm such an optimist, it's very likely that I'll be like, obviously, I need more time on this.
No, you can just do it as long as you like. It's interesting though, and you don't, the form of TV. I always have a thing about like form and how a theatre idea relates to the form of the play. Do you find that the forms you use for theatre, the way you structure your play in theatre, do you find that gets influenced by what you're writing in TV and film, or do you find that the theatrical form feels different somehow?
I think with just with the play that I'm writing this week, it feels like it is informed by TV, because also I've been like struggling with this idea for ages, like grappling with it, being like, what is it? I know what I want to write about, but what is it? And then it was actually, I was in another writer's room that was virtual, and an idea that I had that they scrapped in there kind of found its way transmuted into this play.
Okay.
So they actually feel really related. But I think with the other play that I'm working on, it feels very far away from all of this stuff. Like it feels worlds away from anything that I do for TV. It feels very like you're in one world, like from one scene, and then in another world, another scene. So I think sometimes when you're allowed to lean into theatricality a bit more, then it feels very far away from TV.
That's interesting though, isn't it? Like what that theatricality is sort of defined as. Do you find your scene length differs if you give for a while? Like, because you have to, in theatre, you slightly have to take responsibility for entrances and exits, and the kind of, it's a question I often ask people actually, is where they sit. When you're writing, where are you in the theatre? If you're writing for theatre, are you sitting in the stalls? Like when you're at your computer and it's in your head, are you sitting in the stalls? Or are you in the wings and you're watching everyone go on and off? Or are you in the sitting room that is on stage?
I think probably because I'm an actor, I think I'm in it. I don't know whether it's because the play that I'm writing this week is for me, and I would perform if it ever got staged, whether that's just where I sit today. But I do think when I was writing The High Table, I was like in the scene.
And that scene was in real life. That scene wasn't in a theatre.
Ooh. Oh, that's such an interesting question. I think it was in real life. I don't think I'd think about how the North Star would look, or what an audience's perspective of it would be. I would just be in that.
In the reality of it.
Yeah, I think so.
It's interesting, that, isn't it? Do you think that was also true of when you read things that are historical? So if you read like I don't know, a Shakespeare or some like Our Town, or like, you know, if you read those, you feel that they were written. It's interesting, isn't it? Whether anybody, I remember once somebody saying to me that they always wrote as if they were in the downstairs of the Royal Court. That was the theatre, and they were putting actors on stage and they were considering the audience. I think I do see, it is a completely different bit of my brain, theatre and TV. And I don't see TV being shot, but I do, it's just real life.
I think I'm the other way around. I think I see TV, like I'm watching this, like, and I'm writing it and I'm seeing it. Whereas
you're watching it through the TV screen.
Yeah.
You're not watching it. So do you ever see the cameras when you're writing TV?
I don't see the cameras, but I do see almost how it's framed, or
you see the frame all the time.
Yeah.
And in theatre, do you see the pros art?
No, I'm in it.
In it.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
So interesting.
Why is that? And I don't know if you take stuff. Yeah, you certainly read them like that. I was just thinking about even the really nutty stuff. Like if you read like Carol Churchill's Far Away, like all of the animals are fighting all of the animals, but you kind of are out in the rivers and the deserts with them. You're sort of not in the theatre. Interesting. And do you film frame?
I don't know. I've never written a film. I've written a short film. I think I feel framey with that as well.
In general.
Pardon?
Framey in general.
Yeah, framey when it comes to screen for sure. I think about like being in it with theatre for some reason, which feels like the medium where you're most aware that you're not in it, but I sort of need to like live in the characters in order to make it. Whereas I feel a bit more outside of the characters with TV.
There's an interesting thing about character. Do you think about character in relation to audience? So that's my other question. When you're writing for theatre, when you're writing for film, when you're writing for TV, who are you imagining is watching?
My sister.
Across all of them?
I think so, yeah. I can name some of my favourite pieces of theatre based on whether or not I think my sister would have liked it.
Interesting.
Because she's not someone who goes to the theatre very much.
Miranda, do you know Miranda Cromwell? We had a chat on it the other day, and we were saying that I think there's a certain amount of when you're doing TV, you really feel like anybody could be watching, and so you get to self-select your audience in your mind. You sort of get to go, I'm writing this, and ideally I would like this person to be watching it, and you don't really think about like Daily Mail reader from blah blah blah. It goes out, and then lo and behold, you remember, okay, everybody can watch it, and this is their reaction. Whereas in theatre, I think there's much more of a like notional standard of who would be watching. You sort of go, like, depending on what venue you're in.
That is so true, actually.
You have like a weird relationship with who you think might be like walking in the door, and you sort of against them, or you write for them. It's less universal, I suppose, in that way. You sort of know the location. Because yours play was at the Bush, right?
Yeah, and I think probably the reason that I said my sister so brazenly is because with my first play, I wrote it and I didn't expect it to be staged. So it was kind of like, okay, well, who's the dream audience for this play? And then like the Bush was putting it on. Whereas I think when you have a commission from the theatre, I think that's a very different thing. Where you're like, oh yeah, this is this theatre and these are the kind of people that would come. So I think my sister will always be in one seat of the theatre. But yeah, I do think you're like, okay, this is a Hampstead audience, or this is a Royal Court audience, or
so this is really interesting, right? As a young writer, what do you imagine when you think about the Hampstead audience?
I mean, it's the same with like somewhere like the Almeida. I think it's like, oh, cool, like I'm going to shake them up. Like it's like,
yeah. So there's a conservatism naturally, and the Bush.
And the Bush, it feels like home. It feels very much like the room could be all my sister. Like everyone, I'm speaking to people who all understand me, and I can go as far into myself and my voice as I want.
That's really interesting. And what about the court?
I don't quite know. I think with the court, maybe it's like, oh, I can push myself experimentally as much as I like.
Yeah, there's a bit of there's a history of formal experimentation. So
yeah.
And the young Vic?
I don't even really know. I think it's like, oh, I guess this feels like the kind of conversation where it's like, what theatres have you imagined writing for? And I think I haven't.
It's interesting, right? And especially when you think about the audiences and where you think different, like if I was to write a funny play, I think I'd send it somewhere really different to a really straight play, and kind of just where writers feel home, because I think it's really interesting saying that the bush feels at home, and how that emboldens you to go really hard into your voice. And that's ideally what we want. We just want everyone to be going like really hard into their voice. So kind of the more theatres that can feel like home to more places and to more people rather. Like
and also I think it would be great to be able to be like, okay, this play is on at the Royal Court, but imagine if a Bush Theatre audience came to it, like, and so like being able to almost write the form bending play but then transplant the audience, or what would this play be if I wasn't imagining this audience, or kind of playing with it as if possible as well,
as much as you can. And what's the big dream? Have you got like a 5-year, 10-year? You were saying to me you've got all your projects stuck up on your wall.
Yes.
Like, have a is there a sense, it feels like you might be a bit of a planner, it's like, what do you have, like a dream? Is there a kind of, where would you be in 5 years time? Is there somebody that has just stopped acting and started writing? Like, what do you want to go back to acting? Do you think you'll stay a writer? Do you think, like, what's the plan?
I think I want my foot in both doors. I think I want to like keep acting and keep writing, and I want to work in theatre and TV, which feels like quite a lot. Like you know, being a writer who works in theatre and TV, that feels like quite a lot, let alone being an actor and writer who works in both theatre and TV. But I feel like I quite enjoy spinning all the plates. I'm not sure. The plan is like, oh, I'd love to have another play on. I'd love to have a TV show that's greenlit. I'd love to keep making, and for people, I think the thing is, right now what's really special is like people, and I'm not sure if this will continue throughout the whole of my career, but right now it feels like there are people who want to work with me who care about what I think, and that is really amazing, and is my first, it's, as a writer, it feels like that way that the conversation goes is so unique and different from when I was just an actor. So I think the dream in 5 years time is that's still happening, and also people are giving me more license to do what I want to do and write what I want to write, I suppose.
And be done there on how people make actors feel.
I think there is, but I think also,
I know you need to go at a certain time.
Oh yeah. I think there definitely is, but I think also sometimes you need people who are steering the ship, and I think there have been rooms where I'm incredibly empowered. I can say what I think, but ultimately the final decision is out of my hands. And so I definitely think that there's work that should be done to make actors feel incredibly empowered. But I also think, depending on the project, there's sort of no way that you could have the kind of power or agency that I think I've always been hungry for. So
I want more power. Give it
up. Always.
Fair, I think fair. And it sounds like you're really willing to work for it as well. It sounds like you've got a lot of different projects on the go. Somebody in the comments really hilariously was like, stop talking about all your things, it's making me feel inadequate.
Oh my God, don't. No, but it's because I'm deeply psychologically troubled and I really struggle to stop. Everybody who's resting.
Not something, the jumping thing is interesting, because I think lots of people feel like you have to do one thing and only one thing, and it's really good to liberate people to know that they can their brain can jump between different bits of work, and they'll end up being excellent. Do you have any tips for people like that are like you, that have been acting for a while and they might want to try writing? What was it like? Why? Like, how did it feel to get into it? What was difficult? And what advice have you got for them?
My advice would be to just start scribbling. And I say the word scribbling quite intentionally, because if you think, oh, I'm going to start writing, you freak out. But if you just do some scribbling occasionally, maybe like once a day for like half an hour, you might get somewhere. And also, I think apply for things where you only have to write a few pages. Like the only reason I wrote my first play was because I did the Royal Court introduction to playwriting group, where you only have to submit 10 pages, which wouldn't have written a play otherwise, because I couldn't write a full play.
That's small. That's very good advice. I'm going to let you go because you've got an interview to go and do, and you're a little bit late already. So thank you, Temi Wilkey.
Thank you. It's so nice to chat to you.
Speak soon.
Bye.